hereby declare this the Summer of George! Of course, it is almost the end of summer now, but, yeah, clever title name, and it really worked out good to really, just, it was the right fit for an ending to this season. Well, of course, this is kind of like a follow-up to, what happened in the Muffin Tops episode with George getting traded to Tyler's Chicken, hence ending his tenure, his 3-year run as the assistant to the traveling secretary of the Yankees, and whatever the heck Wilhelm's job was, I guess, traveling secretary, I guess, I don't know. But of course, that was not actually the original title for this episode. This was originally supposed to be called The Dude. But of course, we'll get into that story in a second. Let's talk about the Summer of George. And also, we got to witness a couple of catfights, which of course drove Elaine nuts. But let's talk about this episode. So the episode starts off with, like I said, in the previous episode, the Muffin Tops, George was posing as a tourist, and he got a date with the New York's Visiting Bureau's, main person. And of course, he had to lie to be on a date with her and to cover up for who he truly was. And of course, it ended up costing him his job with the Yankees. So George is back to being unemployed again, unfortunately. But then, while he's eating lunch with Jerry at this cafe they've been hanging out at, well, first off, Jerry sees this waitress, and she seems to kind of like, have an eye on him, basically. So Jerry feels like he wants to ask her out. He apparently has tickets for the upcoming Tony Awards. Well, George, meanwhile, is looking through his mail, and he finds that he has a 3-month severance package from the Yankees, which basically he's being paid full pay to do absolutely nothing. So this is allowing him to basically take the summer off. And he's the first time he's had like a long-term time off, I guess, since he was unemployed back in season 5. But of course, he says he's going to really, make good use of this time. He says he wants to go read a book from beginning to end in that order, and he also wants to learn how to play frisbee golf. Even though I thought it was called disc golf, but maybe that's what it was called back then. And he's going to really, live it up this summer. And he's declaring this the Summer of George. And then he has a fly buzzing around his head. He tries to, kill it with his mail or whatnot. But yeah. So George is all set to just live it up this summer. It doesn't go as planned, unfortunately. But let's roll forward, of course. So Jerry ends up asking out the girl. Her name was Lynette. And he's going to take her as his date to the Tony Awards. Then we have Kramer, who's going to be going to the Tony Awards as a seat filler. Apparently, he got the job. Mickey hooked him up, I guess. So he's going to be going there. Elaine, meanwhile, though, is at work, and there's this new lady in accounting who apparently has this thing where she doesn't move her arms when she walks. And of course, everybody notices. And Elaine makes a comment that makes her seem kind of catty. And that starts a whole trend of throughout this episode of everybody going, because, they just, just ooh, cat fight. And it just drives Elaine nuts. Like, why do guys get so excited over a cat fight? Into which, Jerry explains later that, when two women, claw each other, they're hoping they'll pull, and then there's a chance they might kiss. And Elaine's like, you guys are so sick, basically. Of course, Elaine tries to be nice and take the woman out to lunch, but then when Elaine obviously mentions the fact that the woman, she needs to move her arms more when she walks, the woman's name is Sam, takes total offense to it, and basically, just starts, haunting Elaine. And make Elaine feel very uncomfortable. Like, she even, the next day she walked in, of course, stiff-armed, just walking, literally walking like she's, carrying a suitcase, except she doesn't. So then, she says, I can move my arms, and she, knocks all of Elaine's stuff off of her desk, which just freaks her out. But, of course, no one takes her seriously. Even Peter, when she went to tell Peterman, and Peterman was like, ooh, cat fight. And just drove Elaine nuts. Meanwhile, of course, Jerry gets ready to pick up Lynette for the Tonys, only to find out that Lynette has a dude. His name's Lyle. And Jerry's like, is there something going on here you didn't tell me? Like, you already have another boyfriend you live with? Like, are you, like, in an open relationship here or whatnot? Like, how does he not know that she's going to want a menage a trois or whatnot? Which never got mentioned in this episode, surprisingly. So that kind of, like, made Jerry a little uncomfortable. And then Kramer, meanwhile, as being a seat filler at the Tony Awards, he accidentally gets, like, swept up in the row that when they won the award, and he ends up going on stage and receiving a Tony Award. Which, of course, George was watching on TV, and he was just like, what, Kramer? And, of course, Kramer, was just, just, like, posing like it's nothing, but he had no clue which way to walk or anything. And he went out celebrating for the rest of the night. Of course, the next day, George and Jerry are, talking about the Tonys. And of course, well, first about, the dude and how, Jerry wants to find out a little bit more about this dude and who he really is, or, what the heck he's doing with Lynette. But, of course, George then mentioned maybe she only went out with you because of, the Tonys. Ask her out again, no Tonys, just Jerry. We'll see what she really thought. Then, of course, Kramer walks in with his Tony, and it's like, you technically did win. He goes, oh, you're not going to ruin my thunder. And then, of course, he got the Tony was for the Broadway musical Scarsdale Surprise, featuring he says something like featuring the mind-blowing performance of Miss Raquel Welch. Of course, in the blooper reel, he kept saying Raquel Welch instead of saying Welch. Sounded like he said Relch. But of course, they're trying to, because Kramer, you realize you technically didn't win. You're going to have to give that Tony back, which he was just oblivious, refusing to. Meanwhile, of course, again, Sam is just like really giving Elaine the creeps, but then again, Peterman is doing nothing to help her. She even left this like recording, basically that she's going to find him. Basically, she was not going to let down her making a comment about her not moving her arms when she walks. Like, the woman literally walks like this. And it's when some people go like some motion in their arms a little bit. This woman was just like, again, it's like you're carrying two suitcases. Molly Shannon played her, by the way, in case you're wondering. So, of course, nobody would take her seriously. So, meanwhile, Jerry does go out with Lynette again. But, of course, when he goes to pick her up, she's in a towel. Lyle's in a towel. But then later, Lynette comes to Jerry and says her and Lyle are no longer a thing. She just wants it to be him. So, he's like, awesome. But then, as he spends more time with her, he realizes that she is very, very high maintenance. And she's so structured, he feels worn out. So George, of course, who basically, to spend so much time at home, taking this time off, or, of course, also he was, well, I'll get to that in a second. He then basically tells George, like, I need you to team up with me here because I can't keep up with what all this woman wants. Like, I'm doing all these favors for her. It's like, again, she just has a lot of needs. No wonder she needed two men in her life. But one of those needs was she was having some party and she needed to send out invitations. So he asks George to get some invitations. Of course, while he went out to get invitations, he went back to the same place he went to buy his wedding invitations in the previous season finale. And of course, he sees a lady and she goes, oh, well, how did that go? He goes, can't complain or whatnot. Basically, without telling her that Susan died. So then he needs to get some more invitations. And she even says, I believe we were back here. And flips the page back to where the cheap invitations were. He goes, actually, he flips, like a few pages back to a little more pricier ones. And he picks out a good kind. So he only needed 35 invitations. Well, he was supposed to drop them off, I guess. but at Lynette's. But I guess on his way home, he ran into a guy who was playing Wolff, who actually was Seinfeld writer David Mandel. And of course, they asked him if, he wanted to join. And this must have been just a visual of what George's brain is really thinking. There's either a picture of the Frisbee and a picture of Jerry saying something like, what's the deal with airplane peanuts? And then pop goes Jerry, and then he joins in and plays the back nine of Wolff. Gets back to the apartment, and then of course, Lynette is really good on Jerry because she didn't get those invitations. And then Jerry calls George, and George just got back to his apartment, and he said he'll be right over with the invitations. Well, what happened was when he was walking up the stairs to deliver the invitation to his apartment, he had dropped one on the stairs, and when he came down the stairs, he slipped on it and he fell. So he was being taken to the hospital. What happens there? We'll catch up with that in a second. Let's get back to Kramer and Elaine's story. So, like I said, Kramer, meanwhile, again, he was actually confronted by the people who won the Tony Awards, and basically they were trying to get this Tony back. But they told him he could keep it as long as one thing. He's the one that goes to fire Raquel Welch, as they think she sucks. And they don't want her on the team anymore, but they claim that Raquel is very intimidating, so they need someone to fire her. So unfortunately, Kramer was the one to give him the task. If he can fire her, he can keep the Tony Award. And he goes to fire her, but of course he's just paranoid by her, her sharp tongue and whatnot. She actually drags him back in and just claws the heck out of him. Basically, she beats him up. She's a tough cookie. And in return, his Tony gets ruined, unfortunately. Elaine, meanwhile, though, and because Raquel Welch apparently, didn't move her arms when she walked or danced either. Meanwhile, though, Elaine's trying to show that recorded tape to the police. They're also going just getting all old teasing the whole cat fight thing. Well, then Elaine is trying to perform with the police officer, just to say what she looks like and whatnot. And she happens to run into Raquel Welch, who is not in a good mood, so she thinks Elaine was mocking her. And then on the streets, Elaine gets into a catfight with Raquel Welch. And the police just stood there and laughed about it. So, of course, George, was in the hospital. Jerry was there. And then, of course, joined Kramer and Elaine, both of them who just got beat up by Raquel Welch. Even Kramer's Tony that he was carrying everywhere he went. And then George got brought out. And then Dr. Wexler, the same doctor who came out at the end of season 7 to tell George that Susan had died, comes out and tells George that his legs has sustained some serious trauma from lengthy inactivity. So basically, George from the fall is not able to walk. But through some time in rehab, George should recover. And then, of course, basically, Jerry, Elaine, and Kramer basically gave the same reactions from the year before. And basically mentioned how the invitations, cost him again. Oh well, time to go get some coffee. And then, of course, they walk away, leaving George there like he was nothing. And then George just screams out, "This was supposed to be the summer of George!" But unfortunately, things don't go as planned, as George's inactivity and invitations again cost him. And then, of course, in the closing sequence, George is at a rehab place, trying to get his strength back in his legs, using the bars to walk. At the same time, though, in the background, there's Sam, who's being trained to try to get her to move her arms, but she says, "I can't, it's too hard." And George laughs off, this is nothing. And then, of course, he tries to move faster and he falls over. That sucks! George loses his job, and of course, he basically loses strength in his legs. So he was rehabbing. Where he'll work next, we'll have to find out in season 9. Guys! That's season 8. We have one more season left. in this Seinfeld review series. Before we go anywhere, of course, let's just check a couple fun facts. Now, of course, this episode was originally supposed to be called The Dude. The first idea for this episode was with Alec Berg and Jeff Schaefer. Now, I found this out when we did the Calzone episode. But back in the Calzone episode, Alec Berg, the writer, had a mad crush on actress Dylan Tays, who plays Jerry's girlfriend Nikki in the Calzone episode. Like the blonde who basically used her beauty to, get away with a lot of things. He had the big crush on her. And then at the time, the Oscars were coming up. And Berg was writing jokes for the ceremony because Seinfeld, crew was going to be there. So, of course, he called Dylan Tays to make a date with her, and she accepted to go to the Oscars with him. The only thing is, though, is when he shows up to her apartment, he finds out she had a dude. But Lyle, who was, very thrilled and excited to meet Jerry, this guy apparently wasn't too thrilled to see him. And, of course, again, Tays neglected to tell him that on the phone. So that was a very, interesting fun fact. In the inside look, they mentioned the story, but, of course, Alec Berg does not mention the name of the girl, of course, who it was. But, yes, it was Nikki from the Calzone. Crazy stuff. Of course, in this episode, also, Kramer has to fire Raquel Welch from the fictional musical Scarsdale Surprise, which is actually based on Andrew Lloyd Webber firing Faye Dunaway from Sunset Boulevard. Of course, also, there's in the scene where Lynette's freaking out on Jerry about the invitations, they're both in towels, and they were both wearing only a towel. Lynette asked him if he shaved his chest, which is also a follow-up from the previous episode, The Muffin Tops, as well. Amanda Peet, who plays Lynette in this episode, originally Catherine Bell, Nicole Egger, and Amy Yazbek, whoever they are, auditioned for the role. And then finally, Molly Shannon, who plays Sam in this episode, originally auditioned for two other roles previously on Seinfeld. First, it was Toby in The Fire, the one who lost her pinky toe, which she would have been an interesting pick, of course, the complete opposite of what Toby was in that episode. And also the part of Katie, Jerry's agent, that appeared in The Diplomats Club and The Absence as well. So, yeah, some of these people have auditioned for parts that I don't know if they would have definitely fit them or not. Could have made it work, but who knows. But that does it, guys. That's the Summer of George episode, and that is the end of Season 8 of my Seinfeld review series. We've got 24 episodes remaining, and I'm excited to get to this final season, wrap it up. I am ready, definitely, of course, to move on to something else too, but it's exciting to see that I'm getting to Season 9. One more season left of Seinfeld to review. We'll have to see what's all in store, and of course, those of you who haven't watched the series before, how the series ends. Was it a positive ending or a negative ending? What happened? How does the season end? And of course, we also have the Last Lap special, which I will tie in. I'm going to tie that and this also, I think it's another special called Scenes from the Round Table. Tie them into the two-part clip show called The Chronicle. I'm hoping, though, I get to watch the stuff on the DVDs, and now I might have to watch the last few episodes on Netflix. I know the last time I tried watching Season 9, the final disc was cracked. My parents said they were able to get it to work. So hopefully I can do that, and now I'm going to have to watch it on Netflix and find some way to watch the inside looks. But, yep. I'll see you guys in Season 9. Again, 24 episodes left to review in this Seinfeld review series. So once again, guys, what were your thoughts on The Summer of George? What were your thoughts on Season 8 as well? As, again, it was Jerry Seinfeld's first of 2 seasons that he was executive producer, and Larry David was not on staff. What do you think is, of course, going to happen with George now that he is unemployed and he, lost job at the Yankees? Where will he end up next? We'll find out in the last season of Seinfeld Season 9. So guys, be sure as always, guys, to slap a like on the video, leave your comments down in the comment section below, subscribe more content on my channel, and follow me on Twitter as well at DemandAirboy93. Until then, guys, I'm checking out. I'll catch you all later. Have a great rest of your Saturday and evening, and peace out, everybody.